Joy, what is joy? What does it actually mean? I think one of the ways to get at what joy actually is to think about what it's not, to think about what the opposite of joy is. And when I think about that, two main affections come to mind, anxiety and anger. Those aren't joyful things, are they? Nobody feels really joyful when they're anxious or angry. Current statistics say that over 40 million people living in America suffer from anxiety disorders. It's the most common illness. Antidepressants are the number one prescribed drug, creating a profit of over $43 billion of a year. So when I said America is the most unhappy country, that's where it comes from. 1/3 of the total health bill for the U.S. That's about 1 in 7 of us suffer from what would be described as clinical anxiety. People with anxiety, 6 times more likely to go to the doctor or be hospitalized. And I get it. Life is hard. It's probably true for a lot of other people in the world too. They just aren't able to go to the doctor like we can. Life is hard. There's a lot of things to get anxious about in life. I got a thing in the mail not long ago for this seminar for health professionals, and the title of the seminar is Why We Worry, Understanding and Treating Anxiety Disorders. Here's some of the things on their agenda. Panic disorder. That's where you're in a flight or fight scenario when you feel like you're either going to have to fight to protect yourself or you just have to flee and get away. Ever fantasized about just really going off on a person and telling them what you really think of them? Or just getting away, just starting all over. I'm going to move to some other country and change my name and just fresh start. Fight or flight. Social anxiety disorder, where maybe being in groups too large make it really uncomfortable for you. Maybe it's hard for you to come to church on Sunday, be around so many people. Or maybe being in groups too small, like going into a community group and having dinner and a meal at someone's house that sounds so intimidating. Maybe just on the plain level, you don't really have any close friends because you're afraid of really opening up, because if you tell and show somebody what you're really like, are they really going to love you and accept you? Phobia disorder, where you have a fear of the future. You're constantly kind of anticipating and thinking that the worst is going to happen. The most terrible scenarios are the things that always come to mind. So you worry about whether you're going to make it financially, you pay your bills. You're worried about whether you'll find the right mate in life, or that the mate that you found will keep loving you and stay married to you, whether you'll ever get the right job or make enough money. All kinds of things to be afraid of. Obsessive compulsive disorder, here's some of the things they list. Not only Tourette's and hypochondria, but skin picking, nail biting, kleptomania, jealousy, gambling, compulsive shopping, abuse of alcohol, drugs, and food. We have excessive weight gain or excessive weight loss. Turn to food, alcohol, drugs for comfort or for escape. You got to fixate on something because you just can't handle what's really going on. Post-traumatic stress disorder, that's where you have horrid, really horror memories from something that has happened to you that you can't get rid of, like maybe some sort of domestic violence you suffered, or sexual abuse, or maybe from military combat. So you have these flashbacks, and you try to disassociate yourself from them and try to forget about them, but they just keep coming back, keep coming up, no matter how hard you try to get rid of them. All these different anxieties that we experience, they have these fancy names, but man, we all feel them, don't we, in one way or another at times? And they're all things that attempt to try to really steal our joy and the joy that God made us for. God made us to be happy creatures, happy in Him and to enjoy the life He created us for. They attempt to steal our joy, and then these anxieties, what happens is it leads to anger. Someone hurts you, mistreats you, disrespects you, or just all the stuff that's going on, you get bummed, depressed, frustrated about it. Anger usually tends to go one of two ways. You either suppress it and try to push it down and you get really sad, or it comes out. You express it and you end up lashing out against others. So what are we to do with all these things that steal our joy? What's the answer? Here's the seminar's answer. Therapy, educational prevention, alternative medicine, and medication. Now, all those things, they can be helpful and appropriate at times. I'm not against any of those things. But here's the truth that you need to hear this morning is that none of those things, none of them can really fix us or save us or give us the joy that we long for. Only Jesus can. Only Him. The message of the Christmas Advent stories tells us that there's a joy for you. There's a joy that's for all people. So that means it's for you, no matter what you've experienced and what you've gone through or what you are currently going through. There's a joy in Jesus that's for you, uniquely for you. We're all outcasts, like the shepherds. We're designed to be in relationship with God as our Father, enjoy worshiping and serving Him and all the benefits of life with Him, but we're like sheep. We're notorious for wandering away. We've wandered away from God. We seek joy and pleasure and happiness and all these things that cannot provide it. And we end up estranged and alone and sad and anxious and angry in a dark world. But it's into that dark world that Jesus comes. And He's, guess what? One of Jesus' titles is shepherd, called the chief shepherd. And He's born in a manger in order to save us from all of those things that we've turned to. From where we've come from, what we've gone through, what we've done, our own sins and their consequence, the wrong things that have been done to us. Jesus is born, and He grows up, and He dies on a cross to nail it to the cross so that we can be freed from all those things and actually have true joy. Jesus, He came into the world to save us who are sick. Our sickness is that we don't have joy, and we need it. We need His healing, and He's able to meet every one of our needs. You see, none of us could ever reach up into heaven to save ourselves. That's why none of us could do that. So in Jesus, God came to us to bring salvation to us. None of us could reach up into heaven to save ourselves. So Jesus came to us. Now, don't mishear me, please. I'm not saying that you should never take medication or go to therapy or any of that. I'm just saying that those things ultimately can't fix us and save us and give us joy. Only Jesus. Only Jesus can give us the joy that we long for. Joy is found in Jesus. Now, joy doesn't mean like just being happy, happy, joy, joy, and like smiling all the time. When things are really terrible, oh, life is great. Okay, it's different than being happy all the time, right? Joy is having this deep, abiding sense that I'm loved by God no matter what. It's a soul joy. It's a joy that is deep in the soul, that I am loved by God no matter what. And I believe that because I believe that God sent Jesus for me to save me. And because of that, everything's going to be okay no matter what happens. The angel said that the message of Jesus was a good news of great joy. And the shepherds, they went away glorifying and praising God. They're filled with joy. One of the things Jesus said in His message is that He came so that His joy would be in us and that our joy would be full. Jesus fulfills our joy. And here's how that works. Here's how it works. We realize that we're far worse off than we ever thought and that we can't fix ourselves, but that we're far more loved than we ever dreamed imaginable. And when we realize that, when we believe that, joy just starts to arise in our hearts. We become joyful, knowing that we are loved, that God sees us. He sees you. You're special to Him. He cares for you, and so He sent His Son for you. Oh, the more we begin to believe that, our joy just increases and increases. Jesus, He suffered through all the anxieties that we've faced and face. I mean, Anger and anxiety is not new. Jesus went through all those things. I mean, he was so anxious one point, he sweat drops of blood. He was so angry at one point that he threw tables and cracked out a whip and drove the cattle out of the temple. Oh, Jesus knows. He knows the anxieties and the angers that you and I go through, and we feel, and he had victory over them in his life, and ultimately his victory over them on the cross. He did that for you and I. He did it for all peoples. There's no one in here, nothing that you're going through that Jesus didn't die for, that he came to die for. Jesus is Christ the Lord. Now, I don't know necessarily how Jesus, I'm saying joyous time, I don't know how all the dots necessarily connect for you and uniquely where you're at, but I believe that they do. And one of the best ways you can you can discover that is just to sit down with somebody and have a real talk and what you're really feeling, and help them see the light that God provides through Jesus and how his joy really is better than anything else. So are you experiencing the joy of Jesus, or are you looking for it in other things that can't provide it? Wherever you're at today, look to Jesus for your joy, and I promise he will provide it for you because he's a savior for all peoples.